Hello, friends. Today I'm going to talk about some of the books that have influenced me, that has made a change in my life. In fact, it all started in my WhatsApp group. Uh, like how book clubs can be useful, how books can be useful, and do really books make an impact on a person's life on a day-to-day basis? Does it really happen? So those kind of questions raised by some of my friends. So I tried to think about it, brood about it a little bit, and then I even asked many people what books they have been influenced by, and I got quite a number of responses. And it's quite interesting that there are so many books that have influenced a lot of people, which I am not aware of. The books that many people have been influenced by, I'm not. Some of them I've not heard, some of them I've heard, but I've not read. You know, so everyone doesn't travel the same path, right? So what book influences me may not be influencing you, and what book influences you may not be influencing somebody else. And some person may be influenced by self-development book. Some person may be influenced by a religious book. Some person may be influenced by even a scientific book. A person can be influenced by a scientific book. I got a lot of responses who talked about scientific books being a great. I'm talking about textbooks, uh, right? So yes, maybe people have been influenced by textbooks also, but here I'm not talking about textbooks. More talking about other books, like general reading books, which we generally maybe come up in a lending library or come up in your bookstore. So, looking into my own history uh, as a life story, uh, as a schoolboy, I was not reading too many English books. I've not read, but I've read a lot of Tamil novels, especially those by, say, Rajesh Kumar, Pattukotte Prabhakar, uh, Subha. There was one. These are all crime, mainly crime novels. Okay. And of course Sujata. These are some of the Tamil writers I have been reading in school life. I mean, I never read English novels as such, you know, much. But they never, these books never influenced my, what to say, my value system or something like that. No, I never thought they really affected me in any way in my life as such. But what really affected my life in my school days was my Christian schools. I studied in Christian schools like St. John's, Don Bosco, like that. So most of the schools talked about. There were a lot of lines from the Bible which we used to read or we got familiar with, you know. And there were some teachers who were even took us to churches and talked about Bible and all that. So I found some of the lines, the prayers of Bible and the Christian prayers to be very reasonable, very useful, very helpful. In fact, I was by birth being a Hindu, and but listening to Christian prayers, it was and verses and all that. I found it was very useful and it was very had solid positive psychology behind it. It was very effective in certain ways if you believe in some of them. So I was quite impressed with Christianity, at least I can say that. But I also became curious about my own religion, which is Hinduism. So I wanted to know a little more about Hinduism. So, but I didn't know where to look for the information or from where I can understand that. And that time I read a book called Arthamulla Indu Madam by uh, Kannadasan, Kavinjar Kannadasan. So, Arthamulla Indu Madam is a very famous book where he explains about life in his own style, about a lot of Hindu concepts, um, and it flows like a river. Words flows like a river, and you read it. It's such an enjoyable experience. Many people who have read it might identify with what I'm saying. Then I understood that Hinduism is not so bad. Hinduism has its own good things, and a lot of good things are there in Hinduism. The concepts make some sense. The rituals and everything has some kind of a basis for that. In that way, Arthamulla Hindu Madam was one book I would say after Bible or biblical verses, which had some kind of an influence on my life. And then I started reading some uh, self-development books. Self-development books like uh, The Power of Positive Thinking. There's a book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. That again talks a lot about Christianity. There's another positive self-development author called Robert Schuller. He also, his writing is also basically they are priests, so naturally Christian priests, so naturally their philosophy reflects a lot of Christian verses and all that. But it's very solid, sound, decent, positive advice which these authors give. So I would definitely recommend some of these books which have made a lot of influence on me as well, especially The Power of Positive Thinking and Robert Schuller's 10 Greatest Comebacks. There's a book called 10 Greatest Comebacks. I remember reading that. Tough times never last, tough people do. You know, these are some of the books of Robert Schuller, which was very made an impact. And of course, Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People. That was one book which kind of I read and really, you know, maybe I don't know if I applied because I made a lot of, actually made a lot of friends in my life. And basically, I'm a friendly person. So, and I also made a lot of friends. I've lost many also. That's a different story. Uh, but I have a lot of friends. That's maybe this book had some influence on that because he more talks about you know saying the right words, the right behavior, having the right thoughts, and more of using appropriate language, praising people, and those kind of techniques, being relaxed, those kind of techniques, being interested in the other person rather than being interested in yourself. So those kind of things Dale Carnegie talks about. And then I've read some other books as well. Like later on, I read about an author called Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer's a lot of books I've read, but one particular book I should mention is Your Erroneous Zones. Your Erroneous Zones by Wayne Dyer has made a big impact in my life because he says how we look at things, a lot of things that the way we are behaving or thinking is wrong. He explains how approval seeking. I was quite impressed with approval seeking. He clearly explained that approval seeking is not necessary. You don't need the approval of anyone to exist. Wanting others' appreciation is okay, but you don't need it actually to survive. So that kind of relieved me, made me look at life from a different perspective. Like that, he gives 12 concepts apart from approval seeking. But this is one thing I really remember. There are many other concepts. No, perfectionism. No, perfectionism is not possible. You don't need to be perfect. Accept yourself. More. natural, be yourself, you know, those kind of a different way of looking at it. When there is a psychiatrist, and later on I understand that most of his advice is based on rational emotive behavior therapy and the later on cognitive behavior therapy. Some of the underlying principles of these therapies have been made into uh, a publicly talkable theory, right? And much later, of late, I read about after becoming a psychiatrist and all that. Recently, we read about Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl's book, The Man's Search for Meaning for Life, Meaning of Life. So, Man's Search for Meaning of Life. So again, that's a very powerful book. It clearly explains that meaning is a central thing in life. You know, if you have a meaning to life, then you can survive anything. All sufferings have a purpose. You know, will serve a purpose, and in fact, you can survive any horrible thing if you have a meaning in your life. You know, it goes on that angle. I thought that was again a very powerful book, and you know, it has some of the other books like Ikigai. You know, Ikigai talks about the purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? What is the sense of life? Uh, in Atomic Habits talks about how to have good habits, how to change your habit, some of the techniques, and of course, like everybody, I also read Robin Sharma, some of the bestsellers like Robin Sharma. So all books of Robin Sharma I've read. Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. You know, Don't Sweat This by Carlson, Richard Carlson. I've read. Um, there's so many other books as well. Um, many other authors. So many of this self-development psychology, positive psychology, and some of the things based on Thomas Harris. There's an author called Thomas Harris based on transactional analysis. He talks about I'm okay, you are okay. That I find it was again a very solid concept. It's like Hinduism talking about Atman. I read Bhagavad Gita. I wanted to before after reading Hindu Arthamul Hindumadam, I have read Bhagavad Gita in my first or second year. That made a big influence on me, like how the Atman is same in every person and all that. Moderation. A lot of lessons in Bhagavad Gita. Moderation, um, like that. So it goes so. There are so many lessons there, and just do your duty. Don't expect the results, or there's nothing to lose. Nothing to lose, and even death is okay. Like because you're after all your soul, and you're not your body. Although it's sometimes very difficult to really understand what it means. Like, yeah, sometimes it gives you a sense of relief. When somebody dies in your family, then okay, the Atman is still living, the soul is still there. That kind of a thought process helps human beings, of course. So yeah, so Bhagavad Gita. So like that, religious books have had an uh, influence. I was talking about I'm okay, you're okay. I am okay or you're okay. But what I understood, it again talks about the same thing. If you feel that you're also the same, the other person is also the same, and you connect the same way, then everything is fine. You know? When it talks about parent, adult, child, and all that, it was a bit complicated for me at that stage because I was only a student, undergraduate medical student or something. But still, it made sense that some of the things are for my parents. Sometimes you have to act like an adult, and you also have a child within you. All three things are there within you. And later on, I understand it's some a modification or from the ego, superego of Sigmund Freud. Uh, there are other books as well. Ayn Rand. There was an author called Ayn Rand, and he has written books like Atlas Shrugged, and there was other book. But what I understood from Ayn Rand's philosophy is you can be selfish. You can be selfish and live for yourself. Be unique. Be a natural thing. So on. It defied everything that I knew before, and it was very very raw and contrasting what we would normally believe. So Ayn Rand had some influence, and then later on, now the normal self-development, and then a lot of spiritual books like Swami Sugabodhananda, Manase Relax Please, you know, and books like that, you know. அத்தனைக்கும் ஆசைப்படு by Jaggi Vasudev, or கதவை தர காற்று வரட்டும் by Swami Nityananda. All this I found had some sensible advice and had made sense when I listened to, when I read them. Um, of course, later on, of late, we have this option of audiobooks available. Now that has opened my world to even more great number of books, and even now I keep reading and listening and all that. There are still a lot of books which are making an influence, uh, like Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, or Emotional Intelligence of Daniel Goleman. When you read Emotional Intelligence of Daniel Goleman, you understand that there's something called marshmallow test. If a child, if it knows how to control its impulse to take a marshmallow for 10 minutes, the child will be very successful later on. So man has to know how to control his impulse. That's the core idea I thought I got from. There are so many other things talked about in emotional intelligence, but this was a very powerful lesson I thought from uh, Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence. And I've read Osho also. Osho, from sex to super consciousness. Osho is a very controversial speaker. I would like to maybe clarify certain things. Like, I've never been to an Osho ashram. I never took sannyas from an Osho ashram or anything like that. And you know, so, but still, I like his books. I read his books, and I like some of his makes sense. What he says makes sense, and to me, because whenever I talk about Osho, people think I am somebody who's a cranky, or somebody who's hypersexual, or somebody who is not mainstream person. But I'm a very mainstream person. And I know many mainstream persons who need a normal family life, but still like Osho. There are a lot of psychiatrists or philosophers who like Osho because he talks a lot of sense. But what he did, I don't know. I watched Netflix about him and all that, and I don't have any opinion. I'm not going to defend what he did or whatever. I don't know about it. But what he speaks has been written as books, and that makes a lot of sense. Right? And that's what I want to talk about. And he kind of rationalizes sexual impulses. He says sex is a very normal thing, and to give an expression to sex is a very normal, which is a very basic common sense. We don't need a Swamiji or philosopher to say that. But of course, some of the religious beliefs have confused man to a point that this has to be said, that sexuality is normal, sex is normal, masturbation is normal. As a medical doctors, we keep are aware. Sometimes, as a sexologist, we say masturbation is normal. Come on, man, don't worry about it. So, in that medical sense, also, what Osho says makes a lot of sense. So, these are some of the books. Apart from this, there are other books like uh, Swami, the autobiography on Yogi by Swami Yogananda, Swami Rama. Living with the Himalayan monks by Swami Rama, and the Robert Kiyosaki's book about Rich Dad Poor Dad. That gives a lot of sense about how money works, how to make passive income, how to retire, how to have financial freedom. This kind of basic financial concepts. Uh, I the psychology of money is another recent book people talk about. I've read it, but I didn't really feel the influence of that book. Maybe I'll read it again. But yeah, but Robert Kiyosaki was made a lot of financial sense. So a lot of life lessons are there in this book. Mahabharata, I read Rajaji's Mahabharata in the first place, even as a first year college student. Recently, read all Anand Neelakantan and Devdutt Patnaik, these guys' interpretations, versions of Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, and all that. And of course, Amish Tripathi, Immortals of Meluva, gives a very different dimension of how some of the things could have happened, might have happened. Runs your wild imagination, about Hindu mythology. Uh, but I've not read Das Kapital. I've not read many of the communist literature. I've not Fyodor Dostoevsky. I've tried to read, but it was a bit too heavy for me. But I think I read Crime and Punishment. Mm, Shakespeare, of course, I've read many of Shakespeare's books. In Tamil, Tirukkural. Tirukkural is part of a syllabus, so it gets incorporated into our lifestyle, like Aviyar Skondrai Vendan and Atichudi, and this kind of basic Tamil literature is very strong in ethics and moral values and life lessons and all that. You don't need anything else. Like Tirukkural is such a wonderful book. I would request all whoever is watching to go read Tirukkural in English or whatever language is available. What was the mother tongue? It's available in every language. I guess it has been translated into so many languages. So I would request you to go through Tirukkural, because finally everything is there in Tirukkural itself. We don't need another book, you know. So now, of course, the English dictionary. I should definitely talk about English dictionary, medical dictionary, psychiatric dictionary. These are books which are very, very important books. I feel like knowing the words are very important. And then the Renan Martin, the grammar, how you should place your words, knowing the language, especially if you want to become a writer or even do some good, decent writing, like normal writing, you need these kind of basic knowledge. So I feel these are some of the books that have had an influence in my life, which I could. I'm not prepared for this talk. Basically, I'm talking very spontaneously, extemporaneously. Maybe if on another video, maybe I'll think about all this, and if I left some important books, I'll get back to you. So, um, and every book has had some impact on me. Left some changed some of my the way I do certain things, the way I look at certain things, the way I would act in a certain way. And okay, I'll stop with that today's live. For more discussions, talk to me or get back to me, or come in the comment section or inbox. Just call me, and you can have more chats about books, book clubs, and the meaning of life and the meaning of books. Thanks a lot, guys. Bye bye.